The Star Wars timeline is massive, now stretching all the way back to 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin with the introduction of Dawn of the Jedi. But there's still one time period we haven't seen in canon yet. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. It's complicated with the Star Wars timelines right now. There's so many different opportunities that we could possibly go into, but there's such a lack of content when it comes to on the screen. So there's this chicken and egg situation. Which ones should we do first and which ones should come later? And what is the priority that they should really be focusing on? And we as fans may have one perception, but that just ends up not being the case when it goes inside of Lucasfilm. So when you look at the options available to us, we have, of course, the original trilogy time period. We have the time period that the Mandoverse takes place in. We've got the sequel trilogy time period, and we've got the prequels time period. But on top of that, we now have the High Republic as well as Dawn of the Jedi, and we even have the new Jedi Order time period. But as you may have noticed in that string of characters, I did miss one. And that's the time period of the Knights of the Old Republic. And this is where it gets interesting. Up until Star Wars Celebration this year, we did not have an official yes or no when it came to Knights of the Old Republic. While we all considered it as a time period they would more than likely explore in canon, it never was officially canon until this year. Previously, it was Legends content, and not even that. It's a time period that's mostly fleshed out in books and video games, so that was even more of this ambiguous time period. Something that I think muddies the water slightly, not a whole lot, but slightly, is the introduction of the High Republic. And then you even talk about Star Wars, the Old Republic. There's this difference between each of these time periods and each of the content in those time periods that are very similar but also very unique. When you look at the High Republic, this would be the golden era of the Jedi. This is where they are at their most stretched in terms of their reach across the galaxy, as well as the most powerful they've been in terms of political reach in the galaxy. So for getting this content of the High Republic, why do we need the Old Republic? Why do we need this Knights of the Old Republic material to be out there? In my opinion, there is such a clear differentiation when we look at the High Republic to the Knights of the Old Republic. There is a level of grit and texture, and also, well, if we look at the High Republic as like the height of the golden era of the Jedi, Knights of the Old Republic is basically the inverse of that. You do have very strong and very powerful Jedi, but you have equally, and maybe even more so, stronger Sith than we've ever seen in anything that has to do with canon. While there is a lot of frustrations I feel with the consistency and the level of quality in Legends content, you cannot deny how cool the villains are. While they may have dropped the ball on a lot of the extended universe in Legends, you can't say that they did that with the dark side or the Sith, especially when you look at the Knights of the Old Republic and how powerful they were in that time period. And I think this, even alone, could be enough to warrant exploration in Knights of the Old Republic. But then you look at the variety of different stories that can be told. You can go a little bit darker, you can go a little bit grittier than you can with High Republic, or even some of the new Star Wars time periods that we're exploring. So, asking the question and then answering the question of, do we need the Knights of the Old Republic? I say yes. I say that there is enough variety of storytelling that we can go deeper in this new time period that we've explored past in the Legends and that kind of content, but I think there's a place for it to be explored in this new era of Star Wars. When we look at Dawn of the Jedi, this is a time period that's going to be looking at the dawn of the Jedi, the introduction of the Force, and it's using in this particular way. I think is going to be very interesting to see, and I think it's going to be a lead-in to the types of content we could see in something based in Knights of the Old Republic era. But we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, the big problem with this exploration into Knights of the Old Republic, which is the seeming cancellation of the Knights of the Old Republic remake. I feel like this was the perfect lead-in to the kinds of content that we could see. It's a reintroduction to many people that may not have had the experience with Knights of the Old Republic, because if you go back to that game, I love the story and I love those games, but the mechanics are quite dated going back to them now, and it would be great to really reintroduce fans of both those games as well as new fans with something like that remake, but it's more than likely not going to happen, and I think that's a shame. The whole character of Revan, I think, would make for, obviously it made a great game, but I think it would make a great TV series or something based along those ideas that were taken in the Knights of the Old Republic game. Do I think that there should be a Knights of the Old Republic anything before we get to the next Star Wars movie, which will more than likely be the Rey continuation? I would like that, but I don't think it's a good reintroduction. There's so much around the ideas of Knights of the Old Republic that I think are just too complicated for right off the bat. I think they need to lean into that. They need to set it up in the video games, the TV shows, or some other way before they jump whole hog into some really crazy stuff that happens in this era. But I think now that we have the official confirmation that this era is officially real and canon in the Disney Star Wars world, I want more of it. I want to see a deeper investment of this type of content, because I think there is so much out there that they can explore. There is a lot of opportunity here, but I don't think we're going to see anything from this quite yet or anytime really soon. I think there's a lot of stuff that they need to work out internally before we get anything deeper into more of the weirdness of Star Wars. I think Ahsoka was a good step toward this. I think they're setting up a lot and pulling a lot from Legends that I think will it'll come into play, or pull some stuff from the Knights of the Old Republic era, as well as just a variety of Legends content. But I think there is a lot to be done before we go off the rails of the crazy train and do something even more intense like this. And I think Acolyte's going to be a good test as they go a little bit back, because I feel like they've mostly been playing in a very small time period. We've got the Mandoverse era. We've had a little bit of post-Order 66, post-prequel content, but we haven't had anything pre-prequels in live action yet, and I think this would be a great opportunity for that. We'll see what happens with the Acolyte, and then possibly something KOTOR maybe? We shall see. Let me know your thoughts on this theory and why we might possibly be getting more from this era in the future. Let me know in the comments below. Check out our podcast, and as always, may the Force be with you.